Assalamu alaikum everyone. I welcome you all to my channel, whether you are a Muslim, ex-Muslim, or just someone who is curious about Islam and want to understand the faith and history of its teachings. I encourage you to watch my videos with a neutral stance and an open heart. The topic for today is complicated and controversial. So before I start, I want to share an emotional frequency chart. You can use this chart in your daily life as well. So you can see emotions at the very lowest vibration and then all the way to the highest vibration. So the lowest vibration emotion is shame, and the ones in red and pink, these emotions have weak destructive energy. I try to stay away from these emotions as much as I can, but of course we all are humans. It does happen that we dip into these emotions, but whenever you dip into these emotional frequencies, try to come up to at least neutral. So as long as you are in neutral, you can go up to the high vibration frequency emotions, where you have the strong creative energy and you can create things. So my favorite one is peace, and then enlightenment is, of course, is the highest level of emotion. I think I felt very glimpse of it when I was in my silent long meditation retreat. I felt glimpse of it, and it's absolutely amazing. Anyone who have felt enlightenment must know like how it feels. Okay, so I don't know if it was enlightenment, maybe it was just peace, because it may be like higher level of peace, I don't know, but that was the best emotion I've ever felt in my life. Now let's start with the topic. So the first one I want to, actually because I went through that emotion graph, I don't think I have time for two concepts. I was thinking to do both apostasy and slavery in Islam, but I don't think I have time for apostasy. So let's start with slavery, and if I have time, I'll cover apostasy. Otherwise, I'll cover it in my next video. When I read Quran, my perception was that Quran liberated slaves. So slavery was entrenched in pre-Arabia, and Quran gave slaves right, and not only gave them rights, also gave them a way out and get them integrated into society. So Quran showed humans a way how to slowly end slavery. So slavery is completely banned, thankfully, from the world, and the slavery we saw recently in America was actually the worst form of slavery. So I have this Sheikh's clip, and I liked how he explained it. So let's watch.
That even when you read British historians, they will tell you that the slavery that was prevalent in Al-Islam or Darul Islam at the time cannot be even compared to the slavery that was in the West, because slavery in Al-Islam abolished all forms of slavery except one. What was the one form of slavery that was permitted? It was not based upon enslaving someone because of their skin color. It was not based upon enslaving someone who is a free man. It was based upon what is known today as prisoners of war. That when an invading army or a group of people, they would violate the sanctity of peace, then in the case of warfare, the ruler only had the option, one option of many options, to enslave them. But this enslavement entailed that the person was given 8 hours of freedom daily, 8 hours where he would work for his master but could not be burdened with work, that he had the right to go to the district judge, al-qadi, and complain, and 8 hours of sleep to rest. And then eventually such a person would be freed, emancipated. And also many of them, when they were emancipated, they reached high posts within the Islamic communities. So to liken slavery in Al-Islam with slavery in the Western world, which in fact was taking as captives millions of African people from West Africa especially, and then taking them across to the Caribbean to work in the sugar in order to make refined sugar. As many of you from Suriname will already know, that they were sent to these hot climates. Why? So they could work as slaves, and then on the cotton fields they were made to work. To compare the two in today's discourse, when there is discourse regarding Islam, is false. It's a disanalogy.
And this is what I actually completely agree with. I just feel that there are certain words that are considered really bad, and current cultural norms are like they are just associated with things that were happening at that time. So it was more of like prisoners of war. So there's this person study with Abu Bara. He commented, I agree with this. I believe we cannot even justify using the English word slavery for the Islamic concept, which is completely different. And I do agree with it. It is just, slavery is such a bad term. What was practiced at that time historically in Islam seems like more of a concept similar to prisoners of war. And now I want to ask what ChatGPT has to say about slavery in Islam. Hey ChatGPT, can you please tell me what is your unbiased opinion on slavery in Islam? Because a lot of non-Muslims and ex-Muslims criticize Islam because of slavery practices in Islam. Can you please use non-Islamic historical sources as well as Islamic historical sources, and please keep your reply brief for maximum 3 minutes.
Slavery in Islam is a complex topic that reflects both the norms of the 7th century and the ethical reforms introduced by Islamic teachings. Pre-Islamic Arabia, like many other societies of the time, widely practiced slavery. Islam addressed this reality by regulating and humanizing slavery while simultaneously encouraging emancipation as a virtuous act. Islamic perspective. 1. Regulation, not abolition. The Quran and Hadith sought to improve the treatment of slaves and provide pathways to freedom. Quranic verses like Surah Al-Balad, 90 verse 11 to 13, highlight freeing slaves as a moral ideal, and Prophet Muhammad instructed kindness towards slaves. Sahih al-Bukhari. However, slavery was not abolished outright, likely because it was deeply entrenched in the economy and society. 2. Encouragement of emancipation. Manumission was incentivized, including through acts of atonement for sins. Legal mechanisms like mukataba, contracts for earning freedom, and rules for fair treatment set a precedent for later abolitionist movements. 3. Critiques from non-Muslims and ex-Muslims. Critics argue that Islam's failure to abolish slavery outright allowed the institution to persist for centuries, and some see the regulation of slavery as tacit approval. Non-Islamic historical context. 1. Wider historical norms. Slavery was a universal institution in antiquity. For instance, the Roman Empire and pre-Islamic Arabia practiced harsh forms of slavery. William G. Clarence Smith, in Islam and the Abolition of Slavery, notes that Islamic teachings significantly reformed these practices by imposing humane treatment and promoting emancipation. 2. Abolition movements. Islamic societies eventually abolished slavery, but often under colonial or modern influences, suggesting that Islam's foundational teachings on emancipation were not sufficient for immediate abolition. Conclusion. Islam improved the conditions of slaves, introduced ethical standards, and encouraged liberation, but it did not eliminate slavery outright, reflecting the societal norms of the time. This has drawn criticism, particularly from modern perspectives, but many historians argue that Islamic reforms were progressive for their era. Whether Islam's approach was adequate depends on the lens, historical or contemporary, through which it is evaluated. Sources: Surah Al-Balad 90 11 to 13, Surah and
Okay, so there you have it, an unbiased opinion. So please let me know in the comment section, what do you think?